Welcome to the Explainer. Right off the bat, we're going to completely shatter this popular myth floating around. You know, the one that in 2026, AI is just instantly spitting out billion-dollar blockbuster movies from a single text prompt? Yeah, not quite. The reality on the ground, it's completely different, and honestly, a lot more fascinating. We've officially crossed over into what we're calling the pragmatic era of AI in Hollywood.
So I want you to think about this question. Did AI just conquer Hollywood, or did Hollywood actually conquer AI? It's a wild shift, right? We're seeing the initial crazy hype finally slam headfirst into the hard economics of the studio system. And as we dig into the latest 2026 data, it's super clear that studios aren't just blindly swallowing everything Silicon Valley throws their way. They're being incredibly strategic about this.
Okay, $1 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That staggering number is the estimated daily inference cost that led to the sudden and honestly shocking shutdown of OpenAI's Sora app. I mean, at its peak, the sheer computational power needed to just generate video was burning through $1 million every single day. That massive economic reality check, it literally altered the entire trajectory of AI and entertainment this year.
So, to really wrap our heads around how we got here, we're going to follow a pretty clear roadmap today. First, we'll look at the fall of Sora. Then, the rise of the new video titans. After that, we'll dive into the major shift toward operational AI. And finally, we'll wrap up with the new guardrails and digital replicas. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The fall of Sora and the bursting of that early AI hype bubble. Because, man, Sora really was the poster child for the generative video revolution, right? But it ended up becoming a massive cautionary tale. Because relying on a single, incredibly expensive proprietary vendor for generative video, it proved completely unsustainable for actual real-world production. In April 2026, OpenAI had to pull the plug on the Sora web and app experiences entirely, and the API shutdown followed in September. The inference costs were just brutal. For the studios, this proved that tying their giant production pipelines to one closed system was a huge liability. Actually, more than a liability, it was a non-starter. They desperately needed alternatives that were sustainable, scalable, and actually built for real workflows.
Which brings us to Section 2, the new video titans, focusing on native audio and unified pipelines. Because nature abhors a vacuum, right? The gap left by Sora didn't kill AI video at all. It just forced it to evolve at lightning speed.
When you look at how these new titans stepped up, you'll see they stopped just generating random, pretty clips and started prioritizing highly specific workflow integrations. We've got Google's Veo 3.1 absolutely dominating native audio integration. Then there's Runway Gen-4.5, which has basically become the gold standard for editorial workflows. And over in China, Kling 3.0 is currently unmatched for photorealistic motion. These aren't just fun little toys anymore, you know? They are highly specialized professional tools. So instead of bouncing between 5 different, totally disconnected apps, creators are now living in these unified workspaces. Places like Imagine Art and Runway Gen-4.5. They're handling everything from script analysis and digital previs straight through to direct editing. I mean, legendary directors like Martin Scorsese are heavily using digital pre-visualization now to test out complex shots for pennies on the dollar before anyone even steps onto a physical set. The tools have totally grown up into consolidated creative suites.
And native audio generation? This is arguably the absolute biggest leap forward this year, eliminating the unbelievably painful audio stitching process. In the legacy era, which was like just last year, you generate a silent video, take it to a totally separate AI audio tool, and then painstakingly try to sync them up in post. It was a nightmare. But now models like Veo 3 generate the ambient room tone, the sweeping musical score, and the lip-sync dialogue all at the exact same time. It's a total game changer for creators.
Moving into Section 3, the shift to operational AI, or what I like to call Hollywood's secret engine. Because despite all those flashy creative capabilities we just talked about, studios are actually playing it incredibly safe when it comes to the final product on screen.
Data from Deloitte is absolutely fascinating here. It shows studios are heavily favoring AI for behind-the-scenes operations over direct creative output. I mean, look at that split. Only 3% of the budget going to generative AI content creation versus 7% for operational tools. Why? Well, 2 words: IP and liability. Studios are terrified of copyright infringement from public models. Plus, you can't easily copyright a fully AI-generated movie anyway. So they're pouring that larger chunk of their budgets into operational tools to just make the actual business of filmmaking significantly faster and cheaper.
Just look at how the automated pre-production pipeline operates now. By utilizing this, studios are saving literally weeks of executive time. They're surfacing commercial risks and structural issues almost instantly. Instead of some poor executive having to read thousands of incoming pitches, AI handles the coverage automation. It flags exposition-heavy dialogue, highlights pacing problems, and even cross-references predictive market data against current box office trends. And to be clear, it absolutely doesn't replace the human writer. In fact, WGA agreements strictly forbid AI from getting any writing credit, but it drastically compresses that agonizing wait time from pitch to greenlight.
Or take casting. When 12,000 audition tapes flood in for a single supporting role. I mean, that's overwhelming. But the AI isn't replacing the human casting director here. It's honestly just making their jobs survivable. These tools score vocal ranges and physical specs against the character description, acting strictly as a filter. They narrow those 12,000 chaotic tapes down to the 150 that actually warrant a close human review. The final, magical, creative choice, that always remains with the human casting director.
Let's rattle off some of these other operational wins because they really prove that AI is treating the budget and the schedule as its primary creative canvas. We're talking a massive 25 to 35% reduction in VFX cost for mid-budget films. TV editors are literally walking into work with a rough cut already assembled overnight based on the director's notes. We're seeing crazy improvements in neural de-aging, and localized generative dubbing, it's completely breaking down language barriers. Studios can now export content globally with highly expressive, emotionally fine-tuned synthetic voices in any language.
But here is the really crucial point. US studios are feeling immense pressure to adopt these operational tools right now because fully AI-produced microdramas coming out of China are currently operating at a 3,000 times cost advantage. 3,000 times! Futurists are pointing out that an economic incentive like that is simply too massive to ignore. If Hollywood doesn't adapt its operational pipeline today, they risk being completely outpriced by international creators who are leveraging fully AI-crewed short serial dramas. Finally, Section 4, Guardrails and Digital Replicas, focusing on the human factor. Because let's be real, you simply cannot have this level of aggressive automation without laying down some very serious legal boundary lines. The timeline of recent events perfectly illustrates how the unions, especially SAG-AFTRA, really stepped up to the plate. Instead of just trying to ban the technology outright, which never works anyway, they built a sustainable, legally compliant framework. We had New York passing laws requiring strict labels for synthetic media in late 2025. And then, in June 2026, the historic SAG-AFTRA TV and theatrical agreement was ratified, laying down hard, enforceable protections for every performer out there.
So what does that mean in practice? Well, if you're producing a film today, understanding and utilizing the digital replica writer is an absolute non-negotiable legal requirement. It officially ends that Wild West era of unauthorized, sketchy deepfakes. Now, if a studio wants to use a synthetic actor or de-age a celebrity, they have to secure clear, highly conspicuous consent and pay fair compensation. It's a win-win. It protects the artist's livelihood while giving the studios a safe, regulated way to utilize digital twins.
And I think this quote really captures the creative consensus in Hollywood right now, summarizing the pragmatic era perfectly. The decisions that make a film emotionally resonant, performance direction, story instinct, casting choices, remain human responsibilities. The AI handles the mechanical layers, managing the massive data, automating rough cuts, or synthesizing a background environment to save on an expensive location shoot. But the soul of the film, the instinct, the vulnerability, the real truth of a performance, that is inherently human, and the entire industry is fiercely protecting that boundary.
So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. If a two-person team working out of a garage can now achieve massive studio-level production values using these unified AI tools, are they going to become the next Spielberg? The gap between what an independent filmmaker can imagine in their head and what they can actually execute on a screen has basically vanished overnight. The tools are here, the guardrails are set, the pragmatic era of AI in Hollywood has officially arrived. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.